Hey, this is Ricky Kalmon, and welcome to another episode of Amplify Your Mindset. Thank you for listening. My guest today is Dawn Kirk, motivator, leader, now author, and I'm just so excited. Let's jump in the conversation. Dawn, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Ricky. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to speak to you. And I feel like I'm saying that every single time I have a guest on because it is very cool that I've had this great opportunity to meet somebody like yourself, to be engaged with in conversations, be even before the podcast, get to know you a little bit more, and it gets even more exciting. And yes, folks, before we even go anywhere, I got a copy of her new book, which we're going to talk
Yay.
about. But before we do, I want to talk about you. You
Okay.
have an incredible career. And I want you just to kind of just jump in because it's fair to say, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that career itself was, was an education beyond what you ever thought.
That is an understatement for sure. That is an understatement. I was like, it was my school of hard knocks for sure. But I spent
Yeah.
26 years in corporate America for two Fortune 100 companies, Frito-Lay Incorporated and the Coca-Cola Company. 18 and a half years at Frito-Lay and almost 8 years at Coca-Cola. And I started my career right out of college. I actually was an accounting major, if you can believe that, but decided early on that sitting at a desk crunching numbers was not my personality, that I was definitely a people person, wanted to be out and about and with people. So I went the sales
r-
track
Right.
instead. So I've spent time in the sales area, spent time in operations, I spent time in finance, marketing, commercial, sales operations, and GM roles. And throughout that entire experience, just a wealth of knowledge. And my passion throughout that entire time was all about teaching, training, coaching other people. And I'm often asked, like, well, gosh, you had a long career, you did a lot of different things throughout this time frame, like what was your secret? And I said, really, my secret was focusing on other people, helping them become their best versions of themselves, helping them achieve their career goals. And in the process, mine was being elevated as well. So that's my story in a quick nutshell, and absolutely would not trade that experience for the world.
Well, you said something really key here. And one of the things that I want to just kind of step on and talk about is the fact that you really did enjoy helping people become better versions of themselves, which we say this a lot. This has become a tagline in our culture now. How do we show up for ourselves? How do we become a better version of ourselves? But you know what it comes down to is that when you're a great leader, whether you're the top, VP of sales, whether you're HR, you're leadership, or you're a CEO, isn't your purpose to help your organization become better? It's not an I, and we've heard this before. A team, there's no
Yes.
I in team, but I've talked to amazing leaders that just have a very egotistical, pompous attitude of the way they do things. And then I've had those great relationships, and I still do today, with people like yourself that really do thrive on fueling people to be better than them. I mean, to really, your years of experience, and we're going to talk about some things that I noticed in your book, and really showing people that, hey, I was successful in this. I want to share this with you. Why should I keep this a secret? Because
Right.
this is best for the organization if you're a large enterprise company like Frito-Lay or Coke, but or if you're a small group and you got 20 people and you're a medical office. I mean, isn't it all about everybody? And it's so often that philosophy just isn't passed down. So again, I'm so glad you jumped into that. I'm gonna stop here, but I'm gonna ask you, you know, in this realm, because you did say you had different hats and all this,
Mhm.
was it an eye opener for you, or was it like, okay, this is my real passion here?
So great question. So I would say that it's always been a passion, but when the light bulb really went off is when I entered corporate America. And the reason I say that is because when I first entered corporate America, it wasn't this smooth, welcoming, sale that I thought it would be. I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to conquer the world, and was met with resistance, if you will, because I was, fresh out of college. I was in the management training program. And I remember some of my first meetings walking in, looking to meet people, and it was almost like I was invisible. And I remember, trying to jump in and contribute, and it was almost like my voice, like I was whispering, nobody was listening.
Hmm.
And I just remember that feeling, thinking, gosh, is this what corporate America is really about? Is this how people get treated? And I remember, instead of saying, you know what, I could get angry about this, I could get discouraged, or I could choose a different path. So I say often that I chose to respond versus react. So I went on this huge personal development journey to really figure out what leadership really meant and to teach myself how to be a better leader, because I didn't feel like at that specific time that that was the picture of leadership that I had always envisioned. So I wanted to learn how to be a better leader. So that fueled my passion to learn how to do this thing right. And I didn't want anyone else to feel the way that I did. And I wanted people to feel valued and respected, that everybody had a part to play on the team.
Well, I'm going to play off of what you just said because it's a quote that I've got written down based on what I saw in your book too, is that, you could have decided at this time, and many people do. And by the way, I'm sure I've done it before, where you hit a wall and you just, is this what I'm supposed to see? And is
Mhm.
this as it's going to get, or is my voice going to be heard? Or do I have an opinion here? Or do my talents really matter?
Mhm.
And one of the things that you wrote in your book was, I'll make sure I get this right.
Yes.
I decided obstacles would not stop me. They would sharpen me,
Yes.
and I've said similar statements like, obstacles aren't there. They're just challenges. But I love the sharpening aspect that caught my attention.
Yes.
It-
I,
th-
I,
th-
I, yeah, and that's something that my parents kind of always fueled in me too. One of the things they've always said is when you start something, you finish it.
mhm.
Like quitting just wasn't an option. And so I've kept that voice in the back of my mind, like you don't quit. You figure out how to maneuver around it, through it, under it, but you figure it out. If it's a goal that you have, to let nothing stop you, doesn't mean that it's not going to be challenging, doesn't mean you're not going to have to work hard. But if you want something bad enough, you've got to work through it and figure it out anyway. And that's what I, took with me through all of those challenges. And I went to the books. I said, let me find some books. I was telling somebody the other day, if I go in my basement right now, I have this box and it's got all these cassette tapes in it. Just dating myself a little bit. All these cassette tapes of Brian Tracy, Anthony Robbins, John Maxwell books. I can't even think of some of the other names, but Jack Canfield,
Mhm.
um, Jim Rohn. And I just started immersing myself in learning as much as I could and being a sponge. And then taking that right away and trying to apply it into my day-to-day life in leadership and at work. And it really paid off. It really kept me sane through a lot of those challenges. And then more importantly, I became more valuable because I was able to help other people. Because what I realized is I wasn't the only one challenged with these things.
Mhm.
There were several, many people around me going through the same challenges, and I wanted to be able to help them through it as well.
So this podcast has been going on for 2 years. I myself have sat in the audience of multiple speakers, learning from them, and I can't tell you how many times somebody has said something very similar to you, and it was almost verbatim. Like, I'm dating myself here, but I had cassette tapes on Zig Ziglar. I have cassette tapes on Zig Ziglar. I'm in my studio now, and in the back corner is our storage area, and literally all of and I kept those things, and I wouldn't consider myself a pat rack, and I don't like really. I don't keep a lot of stuff. If I don't use it, I get rid of it. But the
Right.
things that I've kept, and I kept them not only for myself as a reference. In fact, I'm looking at some of the things on a bookshelf over here. But it's interesting is that we we realize that in this process, and I know my listeners have heard me say this, we are all students of life.
Yes.
And if you accept the level that you're at in your mindset, then you will absolutely succeed at staying at that level.
Yes.
And you have to humble yourself to realize somebody else has either made a mistake or is trying to teach you something, which goes back to what we just talked about. But that's why Zig Ziglar and the Jack Canfields and the Tony Robbins and John, it just list goes on and on. The
Right.
point is they're successful because they're in the information business, and people like yourself realize, wait a minute, I can really grow by expanding my knowledge and get outside that. We get really comfortable right here, this space in here, and we realize there's so much more in everything we do. I mean, when you learn something, I mean, have you ever like done something because you learned it and then you actually execute it and you're like, whoa, this is really cool. This is great. Whether it was something in business or even just cooking something you didn't think you can cook. I feel like our human nature is to really thrive again off of being successful at things, and
Yes.
also learning, as you've said, how to overcome the challenges, the obstacles in front of us. How do we accept them? How do we react to them? And how do they, and I'll use your word, sharpen them, sharpen our skills.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I still use those things to this day. I'm always reading, I'm always listening to something. If I've got a question, now it's much easier than it used to be. You can just Google it, right? There's information
no,
everywhere. So
our
I
our
truly
whole
believe,
life has changed, because
yes,
of the information we can capture, quickly. I mean, we become experts very, very fast based on, the and maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know.
yeah,
You know, maybe it's too much information,
yeah, it can
is
be.
somewhat, which can be dangerous too. It's
Right,
dangerous. I mean, dangerous for us, to ourselves, because we thrive on going to people that are experts, but then we come in to be the expert, who's really helping who?
right.
You know?
Exactly, exactly. So I've
Um,
adopted core value of just lifelong learning. That's one of my core values now.
absolutely. And this even came up this weekend, and just a funny conversation with somebody. Have you heard the statement? If you're the smartest person in the room, get another room.
Yes, yes.
And that's not trying to be degrading or condescending to the people in the room, but I think that what that's saying is strive to network, strive to learn, strive to be humble
Hmm.
that maybe could learn something. And it's interesting is that I'm sure there are executives that have executive group meetings with other executives to share. There are salespeople that share information. There's leadership people that you know share information. I think we have to strive for that, investing in ourselves, and that's where your book takes the individual. And which I really loved about the book is that it wasn't just a book about your career and this is about business, and this was a plan of action of personal self growth. Because what I liked about the starting out of the book is that you really dived into, and it becomes eh, really a blueprint, of not only the affirmations and things that you should be saying to yourself, and the things that you lead yourself, and how to lead other people. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is very fair. In fact, I'm often asked, like, so why did you write the book? And I said, well, because I was getting the question over and over again, how did you do what you've done from a career perspective? And then particularly as a wife and a parent and all of these things, how did you manage to do all of that? And many times I was like, wow, let me just really reflect on really how did I do it so I could provide a framework for people to follow. Because I think many times there's a lot of information on all the problems that we have, but there's another story on how to really solve it. And that's
Hmm.
what I was hearing from people. It's like I get motivated, I go to these talks, and everybody just talks about kind of what the problem is, but I want to know how to do it. Can you share with me how to do it? And so I really tried to focus hard on providing a how do you change if you want to make a change.
Yeah,
And so
finding the
that,
solution before the
yes,
problem is there.
exactly, exactly. So I tried to reverse engineer it just a little bit.
Okay, so now you just kind of sparked a thought here. Without being, if you can disclose, if
Yeah.
there's, was there a time in your career where you felt like this moment, this obstacle, this hurdle, whatever it might have been, if you didn't move forward, could have held you back, and how did you move forward with it?
Oh my gosh. Yes, there's one. Yeah, it was probably the most challenging part of my career, and actually it spilled over into personal life as well. So I remember taking a job. So I was very career focused. I want this job next. I want to make this amount of money. Very goal oriented. And there was an opportunity to take a director role. This was going to require my first relocation to a new state. My husband had a traveling job. I was a new mom, 18-month-old. And my gut said, this is not the right time for you to be uprooting. You won't have any support in Michigan. If you're a young mom, you're still trying to figure out this work-life integration. I don't call it balance, but integration. It's probably not a good time, but I rationalized it. I had been successful. I was excited. I wanted to get to the next level. I wanted to make more money, so I went anyway. It was a brand new job as well. There were only 4 of them in the country, so there was no real roadmap before me. It was a turnaround situation, which I didn't really understand prior to going in.
Mhm.
And most of all, I was not the selected candidate. I had been appointed to the role after an interview process, and they wanted someone else. So if you can imagine how difficult that scenario was. So talk about, no roadmap, no welcoming committee, trying to find out everything you could the hard way. And I got to a point where I really started to doubt my confidence. I doubted my intellectual ability to do this job at this level. Had I reached my peak? And was angry at myself for making a bad decision, because it's like you should have listened to your gut and not have gone. And then I felt the mommy guilt thing as well, because I was working a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of hours. My husband was traveling. My sister came to live with us to help raise the kids, or raise my child. So all of that combined was a disaster, to the point where I was pretty depressed, pretty stressed, and wanted to throw in the towel. But if you remember what I said in the beginning of the broadcast, which was, I still had that voice in my head from what my parents have taught me: you don't quit, you never quit, if this is what you want. And so I kept at it anyway. And I found some mentors, I found some people to talk to. I started strategizing on what I needed to do to kind of overcome this. And what's the word I want to use? Transformation for me is I really got serious about following my core values, not
Mhm.
following jobs and titles and money, but what was really important to me at the end of the day. And it wasn't money. It was my faith first, my family second, career was third, but I wasn't living that way. And from that moment forward, I vowed that I would make decisions based on how I wanted my life to be first. My career needed to support that versus the opposite way.
Yeah. That those bullet points you just shared, I've heard them before, but you put meaning to them and they make a big difference in somebody's life. All too often, even in a younger generation, we are driven by success. We are driven
Mhm.
by monetary things. It's flashed in front of us. We have these social devices that constantly people get to show this manufactured, sometimes photo of success, and it becomes, you know, a false reality, if you will,
Mhm.
to a generation of people that set so many expectations on they have to get rich quick, they have to have status. It's keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with their friends, meaning. And I think it's, as exciting as technology has become, and it is so exciting. It's also become so dangerous in so many different ways
Mhm.
that as a parent, it's somewhat frustrating. But you also said that even at the time that you started out, it was all about, you know, the money, and you don't get me wrong. I mean, we all do that, but
Right.
then we become more successful when we don't think about those type of things.
Right.
We focus on leading ourselves. Again, we're gonna talk about the
Yeah.
book some more. Lead ourselves within ourselves. And I talk to groups all the time, whether it's small groups of 5 people to 5,000, showing people start with you.
Yes.
Start with you. When you're happier, you're more productive, you're more efficient, you're more creative, you're more
Yeah.
passionate, you have more potential to unlock more potential. And it sounds like this was your new blueprint or software at the time, and look where it's brought you today. And
Yeah.
in writing a book that, and you said I didn't know I could write a book, and here you are,
Right.
you wrote a book. And
Exactly.
the heart
Exactly.
all right, heartbeat leadership. It's you should be so proud of this. This is your first book, right?
It's my first solo book. I
Yeah.
wrote a chapter in a previous book in a collaborative piece, but my first solo
Wait,
chapter.
let's go back to that because this
Yeah.
is some high standards here. Yes, I forgot about that. You did write that, and it was with Brian
Brian
Tracy.
Tracy. Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It was called The Success Blueprint. So I wrote a chapter that was called Success Begins with You. So similar framework around it starts with you before you can, lead others and do other great things. So that
And
was the
from there,
catalyst.
that spawned your book,
Yes.
Heartbeat Leadership. And this is, and I've said this to many people. Um, you know, you and I could speak about leadership all the time, and I'm going to say this is from my own experience too, because my new book just came out too,
I love it, by the
this
way.
fall. Thank you. Um, I didn't realize how important writing that book was for me first. And I'm sure that, and I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to lead up to it. Um, we know what we do. It's all up here. Okay. We our experiences, our failures, our success, our driven passion, our desires are all up here. But when we put it here, this becomes our legacy
Yes.
to have this bank of information that people can go back and rely on. And so we're in the information business all the time when we speak, and now as you as a speaker too, you know, um, you've got to be, I'm going to ask the question.
Okay.
You've your family. Here's where I was leading up to. Your family now has something to hold on to from generation to generation. Your kids are probably deep down, and my kids, dad's weird, dad's, whatever. Don't embarrass me. It's always don't embarrass me. I know deep down they're very proud of this, and I'm sure your family is too.
Yeah, they are. In fact, it's funny. I've got two teenage boys. So one's 17 and one's 14. So it's not cool to be all lovey-dovey and, high-fiving and stuff. But my oldest son, I happened to walk into his room and he was on the telephone, and the friend he was talking to said, "Hey, is that your mom? Am I on speaker?" And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Congratulations on your book." So I know he had shared it.
Yeah.
Like, he probably wouldn't have told me that he did. And then my youngest one, who's 14, who's a salesperson at heart, had gone to an event with a friend and came back and said, "I told my friend's dad about your book, so he should be ordering one here pretty soon." So
It's
I'm
got to
like,
make
"That's awesome. I'm gonna start arming you with some books when you leave the house, so you can collect the money and give the book right away."
Well, it is a very cool thing, and you should be very proud of this. And I say these words, the legacy of what you do. And I know that there'll be more to come. And I really hope that you dive in and have so much great success with this book, but that you challenge yourself with another book and then another book. And because I know that this whole passion that you have, you're speaking, you're leading other organizations, and which is just so awesome. I'm sure people that have stepped out of the corporate world,
Yes.
retired early, decided for some reason this is just that their life, the next chapter goes on, and their next chapter is a constant vacation.
Right.
I don't think that was you from the very beginning when I
No.
found out more about you,
No.
and this is pretty exciting stuff for you.
Well, Rick, I don't think it came up when we talked the other day, but I've already submitted my outline for my second book, even before I officially launched this one, because I was having some conversations and it really just validated some things I had in my head. I was like, why not? I said, don't do anything with it. I just need to get it out of my head. And a
Mhm.
couple months, maybe the beginning of the year, we'll maybe start that one. So I'm excited.
What you can tell is I've looked through your information too, your marketing background, your sales background, your leadership background, all shines in who you are. Not only as a speaker, as a brand, you've created a brand for you, and everything you do. And I've also noticed, and I'm not, I'm becoming your biggest cheerleader here now, but I think that's important to recognize though, because you've surrounded what you've learned in the corporate world and transformed yourself and using some of those same skills in your marketing of who you are, and from your website to everything, you can tell there's years of this wasn't some group that came up, picked you up and said, okay, we're going to do this with you.
Yeah.
I kind of have a hunch this was your vision, and then you just found how to put all these pieces together.
Yeah, and I'm
You knew
still
what to do
figuring out
already.
how to put them together. It's a constant. I'm always saying I'm constantly evolving. It's a fluid process, so I try not to let perfection get in the way of progress. That wasn't always that way, but that's kind of my philosophy now. It's like just keep moving forward, and
Yeah.
the vision will keep getting clearer as you keep moving.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. Before we go, a couple
yeah,
things.
yeah.
First of all, I'm going to tell my listeners and watchers again, if you're watching this, go to my website, rickykalman.com, and I'm going to put all the information on Dawn, links to her site, and more information that you might be interested in reading. Before we do go, please share with me something else that when you tell people about your book, and I'm sure you have like this little catch in there, because I want to hear your, if you will, pitch of what the book is about. If you were, yeah, whether it's your next door neighbor or whether it's another corporate leader that wants to, use the book, I'm sure there's a little catch of what you believe this book does for somebody, and I wanted you to share that.
Okay, so a couple of things, a couple of philosophies. Number one, leadership is all about people. It doesn't matter whether you're an individual contributor or the CEO of an organization. It doesn't matter if you're the organizer of your house or to the White House, there is something practical in the book for you. And at the end of the day, it starts with you. So whatever the problem is, it can be solved through people. And 9 times out of 10, it starts with you. And from there, you can spread your wings to help other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thank
Thank
you, my
you.
friend. No,
Thank you for having me.
it was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to have you back again, and I hope to see you live. We, just for full disclosure, we both live in Atlanta, so I'm
Yes.
hoping that you have an event, when we all start doing events more together,
Right.
and we can do
Exactly.
something. I really am excited about seeing you, live and hearing you speak. This is going to be exciting, and I know that will happen. I hope very, very soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And congratulations to you on your book. Again, I've gotten through the first couple chapters. Mindset is so important. So I hope your listeners are picking up your book as well.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.